Hello, my name is Kevin Sofen. I'm based also in Chicago, Illinois. I'm from Los Angeles, grew up in the Pacific Ocean. I spent my summers in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, on the small lake in Wisconsin. I went to college in Madison, which is on in between two lakes and then Isthmus. And now I live in Chicago and Lake Michigan. So water's always been the driving force of what I do. And I've been fortunate enough the past 10 years to be very involved in the range of projects from disaster relief water, humanitarian water projects, beach cleanups, a range of water projects that I'll touch on today. And I wanted to give you a little bit of a scope of sort of why I'm doing this, what I'm doing, and I have my hands in a lot. And so I apologize if it may seem I'm a bit scatterbrained, but I am a bit scatterbrained because I have many passions and interests that are driving my business and what I'm working on. So just to kind of start to set the stage of like, why I do what I do. I was always this big water lover, but wasn't really sure like what it meant or how it came together. But then I encountered Wallace J. Nichols, and he wrote this book called Blue Mind, and I couldn't recommend it anymore. I've had the chance to interview him a couple of times. I've been on a podcast with him, but he has this concept of blue mind. This is what the world looks like from 1,000 miles away. We're just a ball of blue. You can't recharge this with an outside material. This is all we have on this earth, but more so if you looked at earth from, you looked at earth from 1,000 miles away, you'd probably call it water, not earth. And the idea with the blue marble and just blue mind in general is it's looking at this analysis and study between humans and why we're happier, healthier, more productive when we're on, in, near, and around water. And it's just, if you are on this call and you're interested in water, I couldn't recommend a book anymore. Wallace, one of the most selfless, amazing individuals. And this is set the stage for what I'm doing, my professional career, my personal career, my nonprofit career. So highly recommend and happy to talk more about that. And then to kind of get into projects, I initially hosted some charity golf tournaments to raise money for these humanitarian water projects. And then realized that hosting a golf tournament and relying on one day was kind of miserable. So I ended up buying and selling these artisan craft wristbands to reinvest the profits into different grassroots water charities. So that's the charity that I'll touch on a bit. But that led me to Nepal. And in Nepal is where I was actually installing these solar and wind powered water treatment systems, as you see here, there on the left. And on the left, it's an ultrafiltration solar and wind powered water system that does 20,000 liters per day. And it just, for the right community and the right system, it's about 25,000 USD for that SunSpring on the left, but it lasts for at least 10 years. And when you talk about what is actually needed and what's going to work, sometimes people think, oh, these straws, or oh, this little system. But when you think about the true life cycle cost of the technology, that SunSpring for the right system or the right application works great. And I've been involved in about 40 projects that use that. On the right, you're looking at a sort of a portable, decentralized emergency military system that's using reverse osmosis as a hydraulic intensifier to create a very compact, small footprint pressure needed for RO. And we've worked with the military and some disaster response. As you know, RO is very wasteful and expensive, and unless you absolutely need to treat salt water or the worst water in the world, UF is often the best way to do it. So I just want to give you a small video. I first came to South Asia when I went to Chennai, Agra, Varanasi when I studied abroad. But going to Nepal in 2015 was the second time. So I just want to share a video of you with the system we did. To share the screen here in a second. So it's just about a 2-minute video that gives insight to my experience there to paint a little picture. We'll watch it and I'll keep going, but it's just about a minute and 40 seconds, sort of a fun video, and gives you context to the sort of humanitarian projects. And this group, H2 Open Doors, and I haven't done projects in India with them, but I know they have done 2 projects. And so I'll play this and we'll keep going.
Sounds great.
When this hospital opens in about 2 months, it will be the only building, not just hospital, but the only building in all of Kathmandu that 5 million people live in, where every faucet that you open would be as if you were in the United States. Every shower, every faucet, every operating room, every clinic in this hospital will have safe
best solution, in my opinion, is the one that works. And in Nepal at the hospital, it was a combination of pumping water from a municipal source up to the roof into tanks, gravity feeding the sunscreen water treatment, treating it, and then gravity feeding those to the hospital beds. And that's been a big approach of my humanitarian disaster relief and just general water projects in general, of not taking technology and trying to jam it down someone's throat, but really understanding the problem and reverse engineering a solution that works for them. Because it might be a carbon filter, it might be a rainwater capture system, it might be ultrafiltration, it might be reverse osmosis, it might be a sand filter. I don't know. And frankly, I don't really care. I just want to make sure that we can apply the best technology to the best project. To give some other context on projects I've done, I've worked in Flint, Michigan. Maybe some of you have heard, but we've done point of entry and point of use water treatment systems in Flint, where there was lead contaminated water. And then more so than just the water projects itself, you see me there on the left, I've learned through these projects, it's so much more than the technology itself. It's about the people. It's about the change management of it. If they don't trust it, they don't know what it's doing or how it's working, then you're just wasting time and money. So it's been, for me being a privileged white boy going into some disadvantaged communities near here in America, it was very eye-opening for me to kind of figure out, how do I continue to have the deepest level of empathy and understanding to truly get a project going that actually is going to work for the long term. So then just to kind of give some other context, more kind of the disaster response stuff, I've also brought this other product to market called the water in the box. And you've seen the sort of wine in a box. It's sort of a plastic bag inside a box. So yes, it is still using plastic. I'm using 90% less plastic than bottled water to deliver the same amount of water. But we found that it's great for storing. It's good for cooking, cleaning, hygiene. And on the left there, this technology is used quite often in places like Jackson and Flint and Newark, all across North America, to deliver emergency relief water when the municipal systems go out. Also I've worked with the military, where they drop these out of planes and then they use it to resupply water to the people in the field. Next, I'm jumping all over the place because I have a lot of things I'm working on, and this is just the water side. I raised about $20,000 and did initially I was going to install a water treatment system in the Navajo Nation and the reservation in sort of the Arizona, New Mexico area. But we then found out that actually they didn't need water. Their bigger challenge was that they live in food deserts, which means they live over 200 miles away from the nearest grocery store. And there's some terrible, crazy stats about how those living in the reservation have some of the highest levels of diabetes, some of the highest level of heart disease, some of the highest level of domestic abuse. And there's a lot of factors that go into it, and obviously history is a big part of that in terms of why that happened. But there's no grocery stores. And so they go to 7-Elevens or they go to McDonald's every day. And that just leads to terrible health practices. And so a big thing that we're kind of moving towards, and Hara, you had mentioned it, but just kind of going back to traditional indigenous Aboriginal core heritage of how we use the land. And it's not like, hey, let's just kind of put a bunch of fertilizer in the ground and just ruin the topsoil. But the projects we did with this gentleman here on the right was, we actually did a permaculture project where we built swales, and we used native plants to install about 2 acres of different plants in this area that simultaneously provided jobs for multiple people, to then just continue to have access to fresh greens, like alfalfa and different, kale and rosemary, things like that. And so those are the kind of plants that are grown, and just kind of continue to, this idea of permaculture is creating an oasis in the desert by reestablishing a water table under the ground, and not just letting, when it does rain, even if it only rains 8 to 10 inches a year, making sure we capture that water and continue to allow it to sit in the roots so we can continue to create a fresh and thriving ecosystem.